If you've ridden a motorcycle for any length of time, you've heard statements similar to this. Be careful and don't kill yourself. You know, sometimes it comes up as a genuine expression of concern, and the statement sounds something like, please be careful. Sometimes it comes from a position of mockery for motorcycle riders. I've heard, you know what they call motorcycle riders, don't you? Organ donors. I've even heard it expressed to me through anger, something like, all you motorcycle riders zipping in and out of traffic just have a death wish. So while everyone who rides has heard statements similar, they don't really do much to help the real problem, to keep the rider safe and upright. This week, let's solve part of that with some real-world tips that will make it less likely for you to die on a motorcycle. I know the title said that there would be 3 tips, but I want to provide a bonus tip if you'll stay till the end, and I'll include that at the end of this video at no extra charge. So tip number 1, always maintain a good following distance. Time and space on a motorcycle are your first keys to safety. You can take the best rider in the world, put them right on the rear bumper of a huge truck in front of them, going 80 miles an hour down the road in an urban environment especially, and you have a rider who is at the mercy of all the other cars and drivers in their immediate area. You can take that same road and situation with an average rider who's created time and space for themselves on the road, and they are in a much better circumstance than that better rider who's right up on the bumper. Road skills matter, but so does road strategy. Maintaining a good following distance is one of the biggest keys to riding safely. So what does a good following distance look like? Well, the MSF teaches an absolute minimum following distance of 2 seconds. So as a car in front of you passes a stationary object, you should be able to say 1 motorcycle, 2 motorcycle, before you reach that same exact fixed object out on the road. Now this is the absolute minimum on a well-maintained motorcycle, tires properly inflated in good shape, an alert and experienced rider with great road conditions and ideal temperatures. To be honest, for me, I like at least 3 seconds of following distance. It gives me more time to see up the road. It gives me more time to react to bad situations. And it protects me more from the dumb things that people do out on the road every day. Just a few weeks ago, I was on the highway here on Fort Worth, and I had an SUV that was in front of me in the same lane. That SUV swerved in a very aggressive manner to the left to avoid a large tread of tire turned on its side from some 18-wheeler. The driver of the SUV either didn't see it sooner, or they were distracted by their cell phone or messing with the radio, who knows what. Whatever the cause, it was a large object on the road, and they swerved at the last possible second to avoid it. But their lack of awareness up the road would have quickly become my problem had I been riding right on their bumper. They could have most likely driven right over it with no harm to them, but that means any motorcycle on their bumper would have hit it head on. Or maybe even worse, they could have hit it, causing it to go airborne, and then it's right at head level for the motorcycle rider riding right behind them. Distance is time, is thinking, is options, is life-saving. But because I was using a good following distance on a busy freeway, I was able to change lanes and get around that debris with no drama. Following distance will save you from a wreck. You're not gaining anything by following right on their bumpers, so back off. Riding with a good following distance gives you time, space, and options. Tip number 2, riding within your skill set. How many new riders go out for a ride with their buddies soon after getting their license and ride above their skill set? Or how many riders take some precautions when they start riding, but in a year or 2, or maybe 3, they start to think they have this thing figured out and they start riding above their skill set? One of the most common crashes out on the road is a rider's inability to negotiate a curve. Single vehicle motorcycle crashes are most often caused by a rider who is riding out of their skill set. Sure, we like to talk about the rider who gets struck by a deer, or a car turns left in front of them, or somebody hits them from behind. But do you want to know where most riders crash? It's all by themselves out on some lonely curve that the rider fails to negotiate. One of my favorite quotes from a MotoGP rider came from Casey Stoner in his reply to Valentino Rossi. Rossi had taken a hard line into a corner and lost the front end of the motorcycle in an attempt to pass Stoner. Rossi crashed and brought Casey Stoner into the crash as well because of his mistake and aggressiveness into the corner. After the race, Rossi came over to apologize to Stoner for the incident, and Stoner replied, "Obviously, your ambition outweighs your talent." How many times does that statement apply to us? And the bigger question for us on the street is, for what gain? You see, Valentino Rossi was a professional racer. He had sponsors, he had fame, he had fortune, all pushing him to win and compete. And as a result, his ambition outweighed his talent, and he crashed into the corner, taking Stoner out with him. What is our motivation for taking a corner above our skill level? What's our motivation for rolling on the throttle and splitting two cars in front of us? There are no trophies at the end of the ride for us. No one sprays me with champagne when I pull back into the shop on my Gull Wing. The biggest measure of success for the street rider is getting home from the ride. If that doesn't happen, very little else matters about what happened on that ride. So keep your ambition in check. Keep your emotions under control, and you'll greatly increase the odds of ending your ride like this instead of like this. Tip number 3, ride within the limits of the road that you're on. One of our goals of every rider should be to develop their skill as a rider and then ride on the road in a manner that they rarely need to use those high-level skills. So if you're out on some canyon road and you round a corner at 70 miles per hour in a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone, and a car makes an ill-advised U-turn just around the corner of a blind curve, the driver of that car does have some responsibility for their stupid mistake, but we can't control what that car does. What we do have complete control over is the throttle hand and the speed at which we enter into that corner. You may have the skill this time to avoid a crash, but at some point the road will call you out and you'll crash. And how will that crash happen? Will it be a simple low side and all you do is destroy your motorcycle? Or will there be a tree at the edge of the road and you slide into it at 50 miles per hour? Well, who knows? If you ride beyond the limits of the road that you're on, you're playing roulette. How big the prize will be is left to fate, and as a rider, you've given up control of that fate by your choice to ride above the limits of the road, regardless of what dumb mistakes traffic makes around you. As riders, we should never put ourselves in that situation. So let me repeat one of our most important goals as a rider. Every rider should develop their skill as a rider and then ride on the road in a manner that they rarely need to use those high-level skills. That sentence sums up the entirety of MCrider, where I focus on road skills and road strategy. Both are important, and one without the other can be deadly. And that brings us to our bonus tip. There were 5,012 motorcycle deaths in the U.S. in 2019. The NHTSA reports that a whopping 42% of motorcyclists killed in single-vehicle motorcycle accidents were impaired by alcohol, and 30% didn't have a valid motorcycle license. So mix no road skills or training, i.e. they had no license, with no road strategy, i.e. they were riding impaired, and you have a recipe for trouble. Common sense and these videos on MCrider can be a lighthouse and warn you of the trouble, but the choice to listen to it's entirely up to you. You have one life, protect it. You have one body, protect it. One simple way that you can do that is by riding sober. Just doing that will significantly, statistically make you safer out on the road. So with all of this talk about motorcycles and risk, does that mean that riding is not worth the risk? For me, no, but it does have to be a calculated risk and one that I want to move the odds in my favor. I do that on every ride by maintaining a good following distance, by riding within my skill set and the limits of the road that I'm on, and always, without exception, riding clear-minded and sober. So, how many tips is that now? Is that 4? I said I was going to give you 3 in the title. Well, here's one more bonus tip. I'm feeling generous today. You know, there are times and circumstances that are out of our control out on the road, and in spite of our best efforts or the worst efforts of the drivers around us, we're involved in a crash. There is no better insurance than wearing proper gear. It all starts with a good helmet. You can buy even more insurance with proper riding jacket, boots, gloves, and riding pants. The amount of insurance you choose is up to you, but it all starts with a good fitting, preferably full-face helmet. So why do I say a full-face helmet? Well, because a shell helmet or an open-face helmet doesn't protect your face in a crash. You know, rarely does a rider crash and land directly on top of their head. Their forward momentum causes them to go face first into the pavement, and only a full-face helmet's going to protect you from that. Besides, I've met a lot of you subscribers out in public, and you and I both need to do all we can to protect the looks that we have left, some more than others. But only a full-face helmet is going to protect those looks that you've got, and it's worth protecting. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road.